So, what's next? Destiny is coming up on its final two expansions, Lightfall, Final Shape, before this saga of the franchise concludes. Less than 2 years, assuming that Bungie releases both of them in February 2023 and 2024. We'll have seasons throughout, bringing us towards the events of these expansions, but basically nothing is known about what happens after, and I'm not going to pretend I know anything about it. I can make some estimated guesses as to what I think will happen in between now and then, and maybe a short time after that, and that's what today's video is. Everything in this video is a complete guess, it's complete speculation, nothing is confirmed, it's just my thoughts on what could happen. But before we get to the end, let's talk about the state of the game with regards to what is coming in the next 2 years. I have no reason to believe that what we've been getting for the past, let's say 4 seasons or so, is basically the kind of content drops that we're going to be getting for the next couple of years, both in terms of amount and quality. Let's just assume for the video you're the kind of player who buys all the content options that are available to you, just to keep things simple. Weekly story content, seasonal activity, suite of guns, a dungeon or a raid of some kind, titles, triumphs, you get it. This is what Bungie is able to maintain. This is what they're able to produce as far as seasonal content goes. And it's been pretty consistent for the past few years, although it has been leading to some community concerns of things getting a bit stale. And after 8 years of Destiny gameplay, I can certainly relate to that. I think we'll continue to get quality of life improvements to the game, and I don't think that the game as a whole will get any worse in terms of quality. How much better it'll get remains to be seen, but I don't think we see a dip in quality, at least nothing dramatic. We'll still have those lulls in the second half of seasons, but I don't really consider a lull a dip in quality. I've seen every complaint under the sun, 2 notable ones being the leveling experience and the new player experience, and what Bungie plans on doing about them. So let me chat about the new player experience first. Bungie's kind of in a bind here. I don't think the new player experience is going to get any sort of substantial upgrade until after the Final Shape. Whatever the first release of the next saga is going to be, will very likely have a revamped new player experience. You guys remember that film critic that got mad at the Avengers for not explaining who all the characters were, even though it's like several movies into the franchise? That was a meme a while ago, right? It's kind of the same deal here. We're 8 years into a franchise. We are several years into a storyline that has finally taken shape, and new players are walking right into the middle of it. The difference is that I can go rent Iron Man 3 and I can catch up on all the movies, whereas in Destiny, you can't go back and play 2 of the major campaigns, Red War and Forsaken, or anything older than this year's seasonal content. Now, can people go look up stuff on YouTube? Of course, but that's a bit more cumbersome than just having the game show you a brief cutscene that sort of mulls over a lot of what's happening in the game. There's so much going on, there's so much backstory you can cover as well, and it can be very confusing to just drop into this universe. But that's just the story. Then you have the entire gameplay side of the game, and this is where a lot of work needs to be done to properly introduce people to all of these new things. I imagine Bungie is pretty much relying on current players teaching new players how to play the game, or that there are such a small amount of new players coming to the game that it is deemed not worth an investment to redo the new player experience. Remember that there are people out there, analysts, who do cost analysis of what is worth spending time on versus what is not worth spending time on. Millions of dollars analyzed. I'm not saying this is the sole reason or even a reason at all, but I'm sure there's been an analysis done on the potential returns on revamping the new player experience and it not being as high as Bungie would want. The amount of work that I think the new player experience needs potentially amounts to a season's worth of work. And as much as current players might say the new player experience is terrible, I'm willing to bet that not a lot of current players would be happy with the idea of Bungie swapping a season out in order to beef up the new player experience. Not only that, but in the grand scheme, we are very close to the end, so to speak, and spending that much time revamping the new player experience, only to then shift to a new saga of the game, whatever that entails, might not be worth all that time and money. I know Bungie has said that they want to build the game for current players, or something along those lines during the Forsaken era, and to their credit, they certainly have been trying to do that. Leveling is another major thing that I continue to be asked about. Is Bungie going to do something about leveling? What's up? What is the deal? I know there's been some complaints about GMs this season in particular and how people are sort of over the whole having to level just to get back to where we were situation. Leveling is obviously something that is only going to be addressed in a major expansion. It is too large of a thing, I think, for Bungie to tackle in a normal season. And as we've discussed in the past, leveling is a very complex issue that can't really just be flicked on and off like a light switch. Do I think Bungie ends up addressing leveling during Destiny 2 in this saga? That's a very tough question. Part of me, or I guess probably most of me, says no. Because again, we're so close to the end of this saga of the game. Leveling is maybe not the most fun thing in the world, especially after 8 years. But it's not something that is technically broken within the game. It drives some level of progression for people, and is probably the most basic and understandable form of progression for the majority of the player base. It's something for the people who don't go on Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. It is easy to understand for most people, and people want progression in some form. RNG drops can get adjusted to be less punishing, even though it's been literal years of people complaining about something like that, so it's probably never going to be adjusted. Bungie wants you to have reasons to play the game after all, and leveling is one of them, as much as we might not really like it anymore. A small part of me says yes, though, and I think that it could happen in Lightfall as a potential test for the future, or maybe Final Shape, since we don't really know what's happening with the Final Shape and how it'll coincide with the future of the franchise. I think Bungie knows how frustrated people are with leveling at this point, and since we're so close to the end, loosening things up could maybe build some more goodwill within the community. It could be an experiment for Bungie. Look, people are tired of grinding just to be able to do GMs. I get it. I'm kind of there myself. I wasn't even ready this time. I had to grind the day of to be ready for GMs. But I'm leaning more towards no, because it would reveal a lot of issues for the game that Bungie probably would rather wait to address in the next saga of the franchise. It's much easier to start fresh than trying to retool a bunch of systems that have been in place for years. Speaking of which, will there be a Destiny 3? I again will refer to a video I made a while ago where I said I don't think we will see a Destiny 3, and the reasons are basically the same. I'm skeptical we see a Destiny 3 unless Bungie needs to overhaul a significant amount of things to the point where this would make sense. But I only see this happening if Bungie is also willing to carry over literally all cosmetics at a minimum for everyone's character. Which would mean that basically everything that we have in the game right now would also be in Destiny 3. Exotics, weapons, armor, anything attached to a cosmetic would also need to be ported over. So why bother making a Destiny 3 at that point if you're just going to bring everything from Destiny 2 over? Why not just keep Destiny 2? Or rebrand it as just Destiny, the online game, whatever. We all know how annoyed people got after losing all of their stuff after 3 years of Destiny 1. Imagine people losing all of their stuff from a duration of double that length with considerably more aggressive monetization. It would be insanity. People would lose their minds. Destiny 3 would be a good idea from a marketing point of view. Looks like a fresh start for people who aren't playing, gives them an opportunity to join in, but I believe the odds to be very low, if not zero, unless Bungie has had a secret 300 to 500 person team working in the background for the past year or two, and that will continue to work for the following 2 years in order to make Destiny 3. The odds are very low, and I think the odds are low that Bungie has had a secret 500 person team making Destiny 3 in the background. Essentially what this video is trying to say is that I don't expect any dramatic changes to happen to the franchise until after the final shape. I think we'll get at least one more new subclass. I think the campaign experience will continue to grow, but I'm not expecting the seasonal model to really shift at all, which takes up the bulk of the year. The only thing that I'm willing to put money on is the fact that Destiny will continue after the final shape in video game form. Why? Because Bungie is one of the premier game development studios with an employee count in the 4 figures in one of the most expensive cities to live in within the United States. And they kind of need to maintain all of these employees unless they're just willing to cut hundreds of them after going on a complete hiring blitz over the past couple of years, which seems unlikely. They need to pay them. Destiny is clearly making enough money to do that right now. They need the cash flow. They're not just gonna stop what they're doing because they just feel done. But what the future of the game looks like after Final Shape, not a clue. Which is both encouraging and, as a YouTuber, sort of terrifying because Bungie can do literally anything they want. They can make a spin-off single-player game. We know they're working on some sort of mobile game, which probably isn't the most exciting prospect given the stigma of mobile games recently. We know they're working on something not related to Destiny at all. They're working on a TV show or a movie or a limited series or something in that realm too. The franchise is absolutely going to continue, and the game will likely still be very core to the Destiny experience as a whole. But how it continues after Final Shape, it's anyone's guess. Thank you for watching, or listening rather. I'll see you next time.